Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Tin Man's Quarter Channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor, and today I'm reacting to my second Midnight Tales video for you guys, and this was titled 7 Most Disturbing True Small Town Horror Stories. So without further ado, I'm going to turn these lights off, move the camera up here for you guys, and let's get this reaction on the road in the bag, shall we? Okay, here we go.
This happened a couple years ago, sometime in late summer. I want to say around August.
Okay.
My husband, who everyone calls Skeeter, and I had just packed up our lives in busy, chaotic Los Angeles and moved to a teeny tiny town somewhere in Nevada. I'm not going to name it outright, but I'll say this. The population doesn't even crack 900. We made the move after our son was born, thinking a slower pace, cheaper living, and the fresh air would be perfect for raising a baby. The only thing that bugged me about our new place was how far apart the homes were. Like our closest neighbor was over a mile away.
I wouldn't complain. At least you have some privacy divided between you and your neighbors. But also, you don't hear a lot of loud cars going up and down the road, or you're not in no area known for violence. In my mind, that would be a perfect place to raise a family. Let's continue on with the story and see what makes this trip to a small little town not so fun for this couple.
So if something went wrong, I'd basically be on my own. Skeeter didn't mind that part, though. He's always liked his space and the quiet. Anyway, this one night, it was a warm Friday around 11 p.m., and he was out working a late security shift at a local bank. Our baby, Julius, was just a few weeks old and going through that fun, colicky stage where nothing calms them down. He'd been screaming nonstop, and nothing I did was working. I remembered how car rides usually chilled him out, so I figured a walk might help, even though Skeeter had the car. We've got 2 dogs, Titus, a big German shepherd who's super loyal, and Dasha, a fluffy little Maltese who thinks she's twice her size. Both of them are insanely protective, especially when it comes to me and the baby. So even though it was pitch black outside in the middle of nowhere, I felt okay stepping out with them.
I was just about to say, if you go for a walk, if you have dogs, take them with you, because they can smell or hear any signs of danger coming towards you. Especially if you are alone with a baby and someone or something jumped out of nowhere to attack you, they'll be the first ones to alert you and attack them back if necessary.
I got Julius strapped to my chest, clipped the dog's leashes on, and made sure I had my phone and keys before heading down the trail behind our house. It's a dirt path that snakes through a patch of trees and usually takes about 10 minutes to walk through. I wasn't too worried. Growing up near Topanga Canyon and going camping all the time kind of made me comfortable with nature at night. As expected, a few minutes into the walk, Julius finally quieted down, and the dogs started to relax too. I thought we were in the clear. But then, just as we were nearing the line of fir trees up ahead, both dogs suddenly froze. Their bodies stiffened, and they were staring off into the tall grass to the right of the path. I tried to gently tug them forward, thinking maybe it was a rabbit or something, but Dasha's fur was puffed up, and Titus started growling low in his throat. Now, he's usually the chill one, so hearing him growl made my stomach drop. At that point, I was totally creeped out. I had no clue what could be lurking out there, and with a baby strapped to me and nothing to defend myself, I wasn't about to stick around to find out.
You got that right. Think about your child's life. Your dogs start growling. There's something out there in them woods, and if it was a person with bad intentions, turn around and go back to the house quick before they decide to pop out and grab you.
I turned us around and started heading back the way we came, just trying to make it home. But of course, that's when things got worse. We hadn't been walking back for more than 2 minutes when someone, or something, stepped onto the trail right in front of us. And let me tell you, I've never felt fear like that before. This figure was small, like shorter than me, maybe the height of a kid. But the freakiest part was the mask. They were wearing a creepy pig mask with this crooked, carved-up smile and what looked like dried, something smeared on it. I don't know if it was blood, mud, or paint, but it was awful. We just stood there staring at each other, totally silent, and I was frozen. Then out of nowhere, both dogs lunged forward, barking and snapping like they were ready to tear this person apart. I was honestly thankful the leashes held them back because it was getting intense. What really freaked me out, though, was that the pig mask person didn't even flinch. They just looked down at the dogs like they were watching squirrels or something. Then, they finally noticed the baby on my chest and made this strange, high-pitched wailing sound, like a cry almost, and turned around, running off into the trees without another word. As soon as they were gone, I didn't waste a second. I turned and ran. I mean, I had just given birth a few weeks ago. It was dark. I had a baby strapped to my body, and I still managed to sprint home like an Olympic athlete. That 10-minute walk took me maybe 3 minutes flat. I burst into the house, locked every door and window, and sat in the living room with the lights off until Skeeter got home. To this day, I have no clue who or what that person was. But I will say this. If Titus and Dasha hadn't been with me, I wouldn't have known they were there until it was too late. Those two earned all the treats and belly rubs for months after that. And yeah, I haven't walked outside alone at night since, and I don't plan to anytime soon. Pig mask or not, I'm not taking any chances.
Hey, I don't blame you. I don't take walks at night myself because you never know who or what will be lurking around in the woods. But yeah, thank God you had your dogs, and they do deserve extra treats and belly rubs because they really stepped up to the front lines to protect you and the baby. He probably was planning on robbing or kidnapping her, but when he saw the dogs and the baby, he backed off on his plan and just took off. I mean, that's my guess, but that's what it's narrowed down to for me. I'm just glad she got out of there safe and sound with no harm to her or her baby. So let's get on to story number 2, shall we?
This happened when I was 19, during that phase when you feel like nothing in the world can touch you. My cousin had offered me a job helping out with our uncle's glass installation company. You know, the kind that handles those huge glass panes on tall buildings. The job was in Destin, Florida, which meant I had to leave my hometown in Tampa for a bit. But before heading there, I figured I'd swing by Russellville, Alabama, to hang out with some family, and then tag along with my cousin down to Destin together. This was my first real solo road trip, and man, was I underprepared. I was driving this faded green Mercury Sable that honestly shouldn't have been doing anything beyond grocery runs, but I didn't care. I had that invincible teenage confidence, like, what's the worst that could happen? My parents, of course, warned me. They kept pushing me to pack food, water, emergency stuff, typical parent things, but I brushed it off. I had a cell phone, fast food joints everywhere, and it was just a few hours of driving. I wasn't crossing a desert. So anyway, I hit the road, excited and clueless. What I didn't realize was that Alabama could get really cold, and surprise, my car's heater didn't even work. I didn't even know it was broken since, Florida kid.
Hey, even though you're a Florida kid, you should always have your vehicle checked on because if you're going somewhere that's known for extremely cold weather, you might want to check on your heater before you take off because you get on the road and you hit a chilly spot and your heater don't work, you're going to be freezing cold in your car. Well, let's just see what happens next.
Still, I figured the chill was helping me stay awake since I was exhausted from all the stops I made. Eventually, I left the interstate and started navigating these weirdly numbered rural roads that didn't have normal names. The GPS situation back then was sketchy. I was using printed MapQuest directions, which basically meant one wrong turn, and I'd be out in the boonies with no clue how to recover. By this point, I was was starving. I kept thinking about how my parents told me to bring snacks. And yeah, I was really starting to regret ignoring them.
Yeah, that's one thing you should not ignore is snacks on the road, because you may go driving on the road for miles and you won't be able to find a restaurant until you see a sign that's pointing you the direction. Because me and my folks, every time we travel, we always bring like a cooler and a bag with cookies, crackers, and other stuff just to sustain us while we're riding on the road, because depending on where we're going, it will take a while and we might get hungry before we stop at a restaurant. But also, I mentioned this in another video too, where we used to print out instructions on how to get to a certain place, but then now here lately, we got these new touchscreen phones that you could just hit the microphone and tell it where you want to go, and it will give you directions on the fastest route and everything. So we won't be needing to print out stuff anymore. But the point is, it always pays to be prepared before you travel anywhere.
I didn't want to risk getting lost by driving too far off my route looking for food, so I was praying something would just pop up along the road. Sure enough, I spotted this rundown little country store with a flickering light above the sign that just said grocery in faded letters. It looked sketchy, honestly. Most of the interior lights were off, but the place didn't look totally closed. I figured I'd try my luck. Maybe they were just one of those old school places that stay open late. I parked and walked up to the front door. As I reached for the handle, I swore I saw someone move inside, like a shadow at the end of one of the aisles. The door was unlocked, which surprised me. I pushed it open and called out, "Hello?" No answer. I called out again, saying something like, "Hey, I saw someone inside. Was hoping to grab a snack real quick." Still no response. The store smelled weird too, like meat that had been sitting out too long. But I was desperate for food, so I stepped farther inside, trying to see if someone would pop out. Then out of nowhere, this guy appeared from the back. Not the old man I expected, but a guy who looked like he was maybe in his early 30s. He had this big, polite smile plastered on his face, but the weirdest part? His eyes didn't match his smile. He just stared at me without blinking, his face frozen except for that smile. I remember thinking it looked like someone wearing a human mask. It just didn't feel right. He said something like, "Oh, hey, sorry, we were just about to close. What can I get you?" I told him I'd been driving up from Florida and was just looking for some snacks, maybe chips and a soda. He nodded and said they had plenty, then locked the front door behind me. Said it was to stop anyone else from coming in while he was helping me. That made my stomach turn a little, but I didn't want to be rude.
Yeah, that would make me kind of suspicious too, because why would he lock the door? Probably going to leave it locked just so this person doesn't run out, if they try to grab him and kidnap him. I don't know what the situation is going to be in here, so let's just continue on before I start blabbing out some other theories.
He then said, "Follow me," and started walking toward the back of the store, past the shelves, toward those plastic curtains you usually see in warehouses or meat sections. As he pulled one aside, he looked over both shoulders like he was checking to see if anyone was watching us. At this point, I'm getting serious nope vibes. I glanced to the side and noticed a rack of chips I hadn't seen before. I told him, "Actually, I'll just grab one of these if that's cool." He didn't seem happy about that. He tried convincing me the good stuff was in the back and I should check it out. Meanwhile, I noticed the buzzing, flies circling above a meat cooler, and the packages looked like they'd been sitting there for way too long. That was it for me. I faked checking my pockets and said, "Oh man, I think I left my wallet in the car. I'll be right back." I spun around and headed for the front. As soon as I hit the door, I twisted that lock like my life depended on it. When I finally yanked the door open and turned to look back, the guy was gone. I didn't wait to see where he went. I jumped in my car, floored it out of that parking lot, and didn't stop until I was in my cousin's driveway.
That's quick thinking on your part. because there probably won't no better snacks and drinks in the back room. He just probably said that just so he could lure you back there to knock you out and rob you or kidnap you. I don't know. Once that person got out of there, I would have been calling the cops to let them know what the situation was. But by the time they got there, the guy probably left. Hopefully, this person won't follow out the door when they're trying to escape. So, if you guys travel a long distance and you stop at one of them old-timey country stores, it may look nice on the inside and the people are charming to talk to, but don't let your guard down because you never know. They might be just pulling your chain. It might end up luring you somewhere to kidnap you, and you'll probably never be seen again. Trust your instincts.
So this happened a couple of years ago, and it still sticks with me. It was June 28th. I'll never forget the date. A group of us had gone to the movies like we usually did, and after the show we wandered around the plaza a bit. The area had a bunch of restaurants and shops, all brightly lit on the front side where people gathered. But the back side? That place was a completely different story. There was a post office, a bunch of dumpsters, and hardly any lighting. Definitely not somewhere you'd want to hang out after dark. Now, the city I grew up in is kind of a weird mix. You've got your upper middle class families, mostly quiet, suburban types. But just a few minutes in any direction, and you're in a whole different world. Country clubs rubbing shoulders with some rougher neighborhoods. It wasn't rare to see older folks out and about, or the occasional sketchy figure just hanging around. You learn to keep your guard up, but sometimes that isn't enough. That night I was in a short summer dress, nothing out of the ordinary for the weather. And after the movie, I was waiting around alone for my ride. I'd done it 100 times before, and never felt unsafe. I passed by this guy who looked clearly strung out, maybe on something. I didn't think much of it and just kept walking, doing slow laps around the plaza. Eventually I looped back near the post office and saw that same guy again, now standing upright like he was waiting for someone. I thought he might ask for money or a lighter, and I tried to steer clear, but he stepped right into my path and grabbed my shoulder. I immediately tried to pull away, but then he grabbed my arm tighter. That's when I saw he had a weapon. And in that moment, everything in me just froze. I was completely terrified. I couldn't even find my voice. He told me to walk with him, and with that weapon pointed at me, I didn't feel like I had a choice.
Oh, dear God. I'd be wondering where this is at, because they said they split up and just walked around the plaza of the movie theater and then out and about in their town. Because if I saw one of my friends getting held at gunpoint and walking away, I would either try to run that guy down and tackle him to get that weapon out of his hand, or call the cops and see if they can get a person out there quick before gone altogether.
He led me toward the back side of the plaza, near those dumpsters where it was nearly pitch black. I honestly thought that was it for me. I thought I wasn't going to make it out of there. What happened in that alleyway was the most traumatic experience of my life. I won't go into detail, but I was hurt, both physically and emotionally, in a way that changed me forever. When it was over, he just took off into the night like nothing happened, leaving me alone in the dark. My phone started ringing. It was my dad waiting for me in front of the theater. Somehow, I got up and walked back to the car like I was on autopilot. I didn't say a word the whole way home, and my dad probably thought I was just being quiet or moody. That week, I barely left my room. I didn't eat, didn't shower, didn't talk to anyone. I felt broken in a way I didn't know how to explain, so I didn't. I kept it to myself. But here's the part that still gets to me. Months later, I saw the same man in the newspaper. He'd been arrested and sentenced for something even worse. And even though a part of me felt relieved, another part of me just felt robbed. He took something from me that I'll never get back, And justice, even when served, doesn't erase that. It took time, but I eventually found my voice again. I told a few people I trusted. I healed slowly, on my own terms, and I've moved forward, not forgetting what happened, but refusing to let it define who I am today.
Oh man, I'm sorry that you had to go through that. But I still would have told Dad about what happened because that ain't normal. And you were physically abused. He would have been furious and try to hunt down that guy for doing that to you. But yeah, thank God he got arrested.
I live in one of those small towns where not much ever happens. You know the kind. Quiet streets, lots of older folks, families walking their dogs, and the most drama you'll hear about is someone trying to rob a gas station. And even that's rare because both stations are basically next door to the police department. Growing up, I was always pretty cautious, partly because my mom was super protective, and partly because I've got schizoaffective disorder. That means I deal with hallucinations now and then, which makes it tough sometimes to tell what's real and what's not. But what happened this one night? I know without a doubt it really happened. So it started around 8 p.m. when my friend and I decided to hang out. We pooled together about $25 and figured we'd hit the grocery store for snacks. But by the time we got close, we realized the place had just closed. No big deal. We turned around and decided to go to the gas station instead. As we were walking near the courthouse, I noticed a guy sitting off to the side, scrolling on his phone, kind of angled toward us. He looked like he was in his 20s, and for a second, we joked that he was probably about to post us on Snapchat or something because we looked kind of unique. My friend had on punk gear, and I was wearing flowy harem pants and a button-up. We definitely weren't blending in, and it's not uncommon around here for younger people to poke fun like that. We didn't think much of it, and looped around the courthouse just to avoid any awkward run-ins, then made our way to the gas station. When we passed back near where he was, I saw he was still sitting there, phone in hand. Again, nothing that screamed danger, just weird vibes. We grabbed some snacks, and while we were leaving and walking past the laundromat nearby, I noticed something that made my stomach twist. There was a guy inside who looked just like the one we saw earlier, and right as we were about to pass the large front window, I caught him pressing his phone flat against the glass, pointed right where we were walking. That was it for me. I grabbed my friend's arm and practically dragged us in the other direction.
You know, at first, if I saw somebody just sitting on a bench and they just had their phone tilted towards me, I would have thought nothing of it. I was just thinking, oh, they're texting or looking at something and they accidentally turn their phone to the side. But if they show up at a window and start taking pictures, then they are really stalkers. And he saw them two girls and wanted to spy on them, basically.
I had no idea why this guy seemed so focused on us, but I was absolutely not sticking around to find out. I power walked us back to the gas station, while my friend tried to brush it off like it wasn't that serious. But I wasn't about to take chances, especially when we had nothing on us to protect ourselves. The manager at the station suggested we tell the police, which honestly isn't something either of us felt great about. My friend's got a serious fear of cops, and I'm not exactly their biggest fan either. Still, the guy was now just casually sitting outside the laundromat, and I wasn't going to leave my friend alone, or just hope for the best. So we went into the station next door. After a short wait, we gave them our names and explained what happened. Turns out, they'd already gotten a separate call about that same laundromat, and they were heading there anyway. When I told them how the guy had literally pressed his phone against the glass like he was filming or waiting for us to pass by, even the officers agreed it was super off. They thanked us for coming in instead of just ignoring it. We hung out near the station afterward to breathe and calm down while they went to check things out. Eventually, they told us it was okay to head home, but we still took the long way back just to be cautious. I work at the local grocery store, and really hope I never see that guy again.
I was about to say, if your friend has a fear of cops and you had trouble history with them, you should just get over that and just tell them what happened right now and get it over with. And thankfully they did, because they said they just had another call about that situation, so now they're taking it seriously. And plus, if they find either video or photos of them girls on his phone, he's in big trouble. But thankfully they didn't. I got followed home that night.
I'm 18, and I live in this tiny village-style town in British Columbia, like one of those places so small that even some people in the neighboring towns haven't heard of it. My boyfriend lives in the next town over, which is still pretty small and super quiet. Nothing major ever goes down in either place. The biggest scandals are usually some bored teenager keying a car or someone stealing a bike. Anyway, it's about a 25-minute drive between our houses, and one night not too long ago, I had a drive home that seriously freaked me out. I'd left his place sometime around 1:30 or maybe 2 in the morning. It was chilly out, even though it was late spring. Pretty typical for this part of Canada. As I was pulling out of his neighborhood onto the main road, I spotted 2 little boys running down the sidewalk. They couldn't have been older than 7 and 5, both in pajamas, no shoes, and definitely no adults around. At first I thought maybe they had snuck out for fun or something because they were climbing on benches and kind of laughing like they were playing. But then the older one caught me watching them. He suddenly stopped and looked right at me, and I swear there was something in that look that just made my whole body go cold.
I mean, that would make my body go too at that moment, because why would they stop what they're doing and just look at you with a mean looking stare? That's creepy, and something's fishy's going on in that area. I would just hightail it out of there and not look back.
Not scared in the usual way, just unsettled. It was like he was warning me to keep driving. Normally I'd stop and check on kids that young out alone that late, but the vibe was all wrong, like I was the one intruding. So I didn't stick around. I pulled out and headed for the highway. That's when I noticed a car behind me. At first it seemed normal. I mean, it's a highway. Cars come and go. But after a while I realized there had been no other cars around until that one showed up, and I hadn't passed any turnoffs or exits. Then, just like that, it vanished. The headlights were there 1 second and gone the next. No swerving, no slowing down, just gone.
They're still behind you. They probably turned their headlights off just so they could follow you without being noticed. Man, at that point, I'd be trying to find the police station to see if they follow that way and get off your tail.
My first thought was maybe they turned off their lights on purpose, which was weird enough. But given I was already on edge from the kids, it made me extra uneasy. I kept going, and when I hit a lit intersection, I half expected that car to show up behind me. But it never did. Not once. That made me even more nervous, and I just wanted to get home at that point. Eventually, I pulled off the highway and onto the road that leads to my little village. Now this road is narrow, has no streetlights, and is full of bends and curves with nothing but trees and brush on either side. You can't really see what's coming around the corner until you're right on it. As I rounded one of those corners, my headlights lit up 2 people walking, one guy and one girl. I didn't recognize them, which stood out right away because, seriously, I know almost everyone who lives here. The guy looked a little older than me, maybe 20, and the girl looked younger, like 16 or so. The guy had a backpack and longer hair, and just the way they were walking down that road at 2 a.m. was off. No one walks that road at night. It's not somewhere you end up accidentally. As I drove past them slowly, doing about 30, the guy suddenly started running next to my car. Not like jogging to scare me in a jokey way. He kept pace and stared right into the window like he meant business. No smirk, no laugh, just this dead serious look that made my skin crawl. I sped up, but I was getting close to a stop sign, so I had to slow down again. I checked my mirror, and he was still coming. I took the turn into town and didn't even care about the speed limit anymore. I was going at least double it. I didn't see anyone following me after that, but I didn't let myself relax until I pulled into my driveway. Even then, I didn't want to get out of the car. My heart was pounding, and I kept imagining he might pop out from the shadows. But I couldn't just sit there, so I jumped out and ran for the door. Just as I was unlocking it, I heard this loud crash behind me, like metal hitting pavement. I whipped around and saw a garbage can tumbling down the street, even though the wind wasn't strong enough to explain it. That was it. I darted inside, slammed the door shut, and locked it fast. Nothing else happened that night, thankfully, but the whole thing left me feeling totally shaken. I don't know what was up with those kids, or the car, or the guy running after me. But after that night, I started seeing my quiet little town a bit differently.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but you're living in one creepy part of Canada. I mean, it ain't normal for kids just to stare at you while you're driving by their road while they're playing basketball, and then a car just follows you and turns their lights off and disappears, and then a guy walking on the road and stares at you. And if somebody wanted to scare another person, you pretty much did with all that. I don't know what their end goal was, but it definitely was creepy and mysterious, that's for sure.
I grew up in one of those little towns where everybody kind of knows everybody, and people used to leave their doors unlocked without thinking twice. Things just felt safer back then. Or maybe we were all just naive. When I was around 14, I had a few regular babysitting gigs, and one night in December, one of those families asked me to watch their 3 daughters while the mom went out to a Christmas party. This wasn't anything new. She trusted me to stay late and even told me that if she wasn't back until after 3 a.m., it was fine as long as she booked a cab ahead of time. The girls were sweet, and after some playtime and getting them to bed, I went downstairs like she'd suggested since the TV upstairs was broken. I remember just flipping through the channels for a couple hours. It was probably around 1:30 in the morning when I grabbed the cordless phone to maybe call my mom or sister to say I'd be home late. That's when I heard the front door upstairs creak open. It caught me off guard since the mom usually came in pretty quietly, and she would have said something right away if it was her. I figured maybe she just had too much to drink, so I got up and started heading toward the stairs. As I got to the top, I heard someone stumble, so I sped up a bit, thinking she might have tripped. But the second I turned the corner, my heart practically froze. It wasn't her. There were 3 strangers standing in the entryway. A woman who was clearly drunk, slumped halfway inside the door, and 2 men behind her, who looked just as confused to see me as I was them. I asked what they were doing, and the woman mumbled something about being there for a party. Now that obviously didn't make sense, so I asked if they even knew the woman who lived there. When I mentioned her name, they didn't seem to have a clue who I was talking about. One of the guys kind of looked me over in this way that made me feel gross, and then he asked if I was there by myself. I didn't want to answer that. All I could think about were the 3 little girls sleeping upstairs, and there was no way I was letting anything happen to them on my watch. Instead of answering, I told them firmly that there was no party here, and that they needed to leave. The drunk woman kept insisting they were at the right house, and that's when the guy who had asked me that question took a step toward me. At that exact moment, we all heard a beep, like a phone button being pressed. I had totally forgotten I was still holding the cordless phone, but that little sound seemed to rattle him. He must have thought I'd called someone or dialed the police, because suddenly he told the others they were leaving. He grabbed the woman, told his buddy to help, and they all kind of awkwardly stumbled back outside. The second that door shut, I locked it so fast it probably shook the frame. I ran to the front window to watch where they went, thinking maybe they really had the wrong address, but they didn't stop. They just kept walking down the block, like they were going somewhere specific. That's when I knew they hadn't just wandered into the wrong house. They were definitely not supposed to be there. When the mom came home a couple hours later, she was too tipsy to notice much. She was a little surprised the front door was locked, but I just told her it made me feel safer. I didn't tell her what happened, not because I didn't think it was serious, but because I felt kind of stupid for not handling it differently or calling the cops. I still think about how much worse it could have gone, and I'm just grateful it didn't.
Yeah, that was a close call. Probably wanted to do something nasty with her, but once she hit the button on the phone to hit dial, that changed their plans altogether. They just got out of there and left. But I mean, when the mother arrives home a little tipsy, I would have waited until the next morning to tell her what happened, because she'll be on alert to look for them people again if they show up around that neighborhood. But that is crazy that something like that would actually happen. Them two guys are probably using that drunk woman as a diversion, and they thought they were at the right house. They probably would have walked around and stole something. You just don't know what would have happened. But thank God she had that phone in her hand, convinced them to leave while they could, and lock the door right behind them. Because
This is one of those stories that's been passed down in my family for generations. Everyone swears it's true, and honestly, the way it's always been told gives me chills every time. This happened way back in the day. We're talking pre-1950s, in this tiny little town somewhere deep in the Mexican countryside. It was one of those places where families had their own land with chickens, crops, and everything, and every house was spaced out with its own little bit of property. People had outhouses instead of indoor plumbing, and they were set way out from the house, like a good 20 to 40 meters away, so you really had to trek through the dark just to pee. One of my distant relatives, a man in the family, suddenly passed away without any warning. No one had ever seen him sick, not even a cough, so his death came completely out of nowhere and shook everyone pretty bad. The family didn't wait long. They buried him the next day in the backyard, which was normal back then. That same night, my mom's great aunt, who was just a little girl at the time, woke up needing to use the bathroom. So, like a brave little kid, she walked outside alone toward the outhouse, and she had to pass the fresh grave on the way. As she got closer to it, she started hearing this muffled banging sound and someone screaming, not yelling like a fight, but like someone was begging for help. Now keep in mind, this is a time and place where people grew up hearing legends like La Llorona, so hearing something like that in the dark would already freak anyone out. Naturally, she ran straight back into the house, shaking and crying, and woke up her parents. But they thought she was just spooked by her imagination, so they told her to go back to bed. She tried to sleep but couldn't shake the feeling, especially because the sounds didn't stop. It was like her brain was trying to convince her it was just a dream, but her gut was screaming otherwise. A couple of hours later, she needed to pee again, but she was still scared out of her mind, so she woke up her older sibling and asked them to go with her. They agreed without question, and they both headed out to the outhouse together. While she was inside, they both heard the same cries, that same awful wailing sound, and neither of them hesitated. They just ran, full speed, straight back to the house. This time, when they woke up their parents, the parents believed them, mostly because the older sibling confirmed it wasn't just the little one imagining things. Their dad got dressed, went down the lane to his brother's place, and woke him up. The two of them grabbed shovels and headed straight to the grave they had dug just hours before. They started digging, slowly at first, and then more frantically as the sound seemed to get clearer. When they finally reached the coffin and opened it, they were absolutely horrified by what they saw. The body, which they had laid flat on its back, was now face down, and when they rolled him over, they nearly screamed. His face, neck, and arms were covered in deep scratches, as if he'd been clawing at the inside of the coffin trying to get out. The wood inside the coffin was shredded with claw marks and dents, and it was obvious that he had been very much alive when they buried him. They think he either had some rare condition where his heart slowed down enough to make it seem like he was dead, or maybe he had been in a coma-like state and then woke up underground. Whatever the cause, he was definitely gone by the time they opened the coffin again, likely from suffocation or a heart attack from the sheer panic. My family never talks about it casually. It's one of those things that still haunts them.
Oh man, that is creepy. That the kids heard noises near that grave, and both dad and brother went out there to undig their relative's grave just to see them turn around and face down with scratches on their face and hands. That would make me crap my pants for sure. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on post notifications for more Midnight Tales content like this. This has been another successful installment of the Tin Man's Quarter channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man, telling you that's a wrap, and that's day, y'all.